Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about episode 4 of Outer Range. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So this episode kind of clarifies some things, I think, in retrospect of, with episode 3, my thoughts about certain things. This episode kind of clarified them with certain elements. So, a question I had previously, not even just last episode, but I think it was like maybe episode 1 or 2, was how much does Wayne know about the Western pasture property of the Abbotts? Like, how much did he know? Well, we see that 9 months ago, someone came to visit him. Well, one of his workers found that a rock on his property is the same thing that, Autumn found last episode. So Wayne's known at least 9 months, but it's like, oh, have you seen anything like this before? And Wayne's like, once. And we see like what seems like a flashback. So it seems specifically Wayne found the hole, but maybe he's never had an opportunity to search the Abbott property to find it again. Or maybe it's one of those things, the comparison I made before was like of La Brea. If you haven't seen La Brea, there's essentially a hole in the ground that opens up a large, massive sinkhole that at least it's a time travel story. And so that port, like, it eventually closes, and then eventually, like, it's on the cycle where it opens up in different places. That's why I'm wondering, did Wayne find it in one place, and then it closed, and then opened up in another area? Like, how long has this been happening, or is it still the same hole, and he just could never find out where exactly it is? Because unless you know specifically where it is, you wouldn't know. That's what I'm curious about. Not unless that was supposed to be, like, he's come across something like it at some point, and that what we saw that glimpse of was just referencing, like, he's seen some phenomenon close to what Royal was dealing with, but maybe that was... I don't think that was supposed to be Royal. I think that was supposed to be a younger Wayne, but like I said, I could be misunderstanding that. But, so it kind of explains why he's so adamant about going after the Western Pasture, because he knows that there's something there. He doesn't know what it is, but he knows there's something special because he witnessed whatever it was long ago, and he's been trying to chase after it ever since. That's why I think it lends itself to the Abbotts are hiding something. But Royal only recently found out about the hole in episode 1, like, despite all the time being on that property. So that's what I'm curious about, like, why. I would assume, like, it opens and closes. It closes and then opens up at different spots around that property, potentially. Once again, what Autumn's connection is, we don't know. And also, I think this episode also clarified something I was curious about, because I wasn't quite sure, but it does seem like the rock she found last episode, the necklace, the stone she has around her neck, is from that, potentially. I feel, because they would have probably made more notice. That's why I would have to go back and see whether or not she had that in the first 2 episodes or not. Because Royal definitely took notice of it this time, but I wonder, is it something she pulled from that rock and carved that out and made herself a necklace, or did she have it the entire time and I just never noticed it? But this is in the aftermath of, the Abbotts calling it in because they had no choice, because the person who discovered the body was Amy. Now, we don't see it, but you'd assume they coached Amy through some of that. They covered some of the questions, or maybe it's just like, because Amy probably wasn't really 100% sure, because there's certain things where, like, she saw her dad, she saw her grandma, she didn't see her grandfather, but she had just assumed that he was still asleep. So either that was just an assumption on her part, or whether they told her, because, like, they kept looking at her, and almost like Perry was kind of almost like nudging and just kind of, they were leading her on, and you could tell Joy's really good at this. Like, she is picking up, like, no, you're not pulling one over me. I know something's going on here. So when they leave, and she's like, right, Matt, you got an eye on Rhett? Talk to him, but make sure he doesn't answer his phone, because she doesn't want to take the chance that everyone's able to get their story straight. The problem is, when she was talking to Amy, it was in a one-on-one, and enough time had passed. Who knows how long it was before Royal called it in, and even then, maybe he called it in immediately, but even if he did, that was still enough time for them to get the call and them coming all the way to the Abbott Ranch for them to try and get their story straight. So they're saying, like, what ended up happening, and omitting a lot of stuff about the Rhett stuff, because Amy didn't know where Rhett was at that time. She hadn't seen him. And you can tell Joy's kind of like, huh, something's up here. And then she also confronts. She's like, yeah, I'm missing something. Did you take something from my from the police station while you were there? And Roy was like, what? No, I have no idea. She's like, okay. So she's like, yeah, just, she's like, well, I hope whatever it is you find it. She's like, yeah, me too. So, and things are complicated because the Tillersons, in particular, Luke, and now whether it's Billy or not, who knows, but Luke definitely automatically assumes that the Abbotts has something to do with Trevor's death, but beyond that, that's just kind of a feeling they have. Because once again, why they immediately jumped to the Abbotts, they had to have... Because if they had asked around the bar, I feel like that would have come up in conversation, but we never saw Luke bring that up. But I think it has to simply be, right, our families have beef. Who else would kill Trevor other than them? Like, there was bad blood. Because he wasn't out there during the altercation when, like, Trevor and Rhett duked it out initially. Like, he wasn't... Because Rhett walked in, tapped on the table as he walked past... Like, I believe, like, Billy, at the very least, Luke was there, but I think Billy was there, too. Like, he walked past their table. So, that was about it. Because they haven't really presented anything else to show that Luke has even hearsay evidence to say, like, oh, he heard from someone that was a lot. It doesn't seem like he even talked to Maria either. So, it does seem like it's just pure gut feeling he has, which feeling's right, but still. So... Things are complicated because it turns out Patricia is back, their mom. Obviously, there's issues between her and Wayne, especially because she wanted to take her sons with her to Aspen, but Wayne's the one who's like, no, this is their home. They have to stay here in Wyoming. And so she knows all about, like, his obsession with, like, the Abbott land, because she thinks it's worthless land he's trying to buy, but he's like, right, that rock over there, feel it. And she's like, what is it? Is it valuable? And he doesn't really say anything, but he's just like, right, once we get that, we'll kind of turn the tides. Like, because he's like, oh, I know the Abbotts are hiding something. She's like, about Trevor's murder? He's like, about that land. That even, yes, he's sad about his son's death, but he's still looking at this as an opportunity. Like, there's something there. I know it. Because I guess maybe his entire life since he discovered that, he's been seen as a madman and crazy. But he's like, right, I always knew there was something special about that land, something beneath that soil of that land. And for Patricia, she's like, I don't care about this. I'm going to work my way down the list. I'm going to find out who murdered my son. I'm going to make sure that Luke runs this land so that you don't run it into the dirt. And all the while, you're just going to sit back and we're going to wait for you to die while that's happening. So, but Patricia is, upset with Joy because it's like, right, you weren't doing your job. It took you a couple days. It took 5 days to find my son because you weren't even doing anything for most of that time. Because you didn't investigate like you were supposed to. Even Patricia being mad that Wayne didn't push further for an investigation. The only people who were really pushing for it was Luke and Billy, but mainly Luke. He's the only one that kind of kept pushing for that, so. And Patricia even had the autopsy kind of like expedited, and that conversation between her and Joy, I thought was fascinating. Like trying to put Joy in her place of like, right, the reason why I'm like, oh yeah, like I know you're trying your best, but also I'm not going to let you just investigate this by yourself because you had opportunity to, and I don't trust you because you've never investigated a murder investigation, so I don't have the confidence in you to do what's necessary. That's also why a lot of people in town don't have that same confidence in you, and it's just like Patricia's like reminding us, like, right, know your place. Like in the grand scheme of things, it's like, right, they met each other back when Bert was still alive and Joy worked under him. So, but the fascinating thing about that autopsy revealed some really, really interesting things. That it turns out, right, there's no drag marks on Trevor's body, because even they were like, right, there's no evidence around the body that suggests anyone dragged him out there. Like, it's like, right, how did he get here? Because there's no evidence of it. It's like, right, it's like he just magically popped up there because he did. But it corrects some misconceptions I had last episode. Because for whatever reason, I had the whole conversation about like, oh, things being timey-wimey, maybe time is happening all at once when it comes to that pit. And so I was thinking like, right, Royal threw the body in there. I was like, did someone throw the body back out into the pit and it landed there just like Royal did at some point? I mean, on his property. I was curious, like, did something like that happen? And then I was like, well, could it be that yes, Royal immediately jumped back into the hole and came back present day. But I was like, maybe there's a time limit, like whenever you get time travel, that automatically you pop back and maybe the body automatically popped back. Now, what this episode taught me was why I was wrong is because, once again, the timey-wiminess of it all, I'm still under the impression even though I said all that about, oh, potentially time happening all at once, it never crossed my mind last episode to be like, right, why am I still under the assumption that the body time traveled 2 years into the future like Royal did? Of course it did. The body time traveled 8 days into the future because it's basically been 8 days since the last time anyone saw Trevor. So that was when Royal dumped the body in the hole. So that because Amy went up that path before, because that's when she ran into Autumn. Like, I think going through that same path. Well, at the very least, we know, I guess she takes it on a regular basis because we know, like, she likes to go on a hike, and that's when she ran into Autumn in episode 2. So she didn't see the body until this time. So for it to magically pop up like that is because it time traveled 8 days. So begs the question, where the hell is that shirt? Where the hell is that belt buckle? Where are they? Like, so far we're seeming like everything's getting still sent to the future. So I'm assuming that hole is still, maybe it's set to go forward in times, and maybe special circumstances have to rewire it and to go back in time. But currently, it seems like potentially random points in time. So for all we know, that buckle, and because it seems like anything that gets time traveled there stays in the general area, because every time, both times Royal went into the hole, whether it was 2 years into the future or back to present day, he was on that property somewhere. And where does Trevor's body end up? Well, interestingly enough, Royal says that body, where Trevor's body was, isn't technically Abbott land. He's like, oh, it's BLM land. So I guess it is kind of very much like the Anywhere trees or whatever, faraway trees in the show from, or like even almost borderline like the Anywhere key from Lock and Key, that you're just going to end up Lock and Key, you have a little bit more control of where you can go, but like the Anywhere, the faraway trees in the show from, you could literally end up anywhere. So it seems like maybe that's where. So once again, that belt buckle and that shirt could literally be anywhere potentially. Maybe there's a particular radius. I don't know. For it to not be on the Abbott's land, Trevor's body, means that those other pieces of evidence could go far. And that also, I think, now it's not making sense, but now Royal doesn't have all the answers to, like, yeah, what's going on. Because obviously, you can tell Amy's feeling a certain way after all the questioning. I mean, yeah, she's a little girl that stumbled across a dead body. That's pretty rough. Well, I'd actually forgot to talk about it too. Last episode, what did Billy say to her? He was like, maybe my brother is where your mom is. So maybe that conversation is going through her head of like, I saw a dead body, it's Trevor's. Could that mean my mom's gone? It's interesting too, because I didn't talk about it. That 9-month flashback we saw at the beginning of the episode, that's around the time Rebecca disappeared. Correlation. Well, they've also referenced that it's not just, like, I think even Joy references it later on that, like, there have been a lot of disappearances recently. So I was like, that's fascinating. What's that all about? You'd assume it has some correlation with this. Like, maybe people are getting, like, popped into other points in time or something like that. I don't know. That whole, I skipped over it a little bit, because I jumped the gun a little bit on that, but I think that whole Rhett situation was so like, oh boy, because, what was it, Perry tried calling him, but he was ignoring Perry because I guess it's like, right, I don't want to talk to you right now. He's probably trying to avoid his brother to some extent just because it's like being around you, having been questioned by Joy recently. It was just a lot. He was just like, right, I just want to go see Maria and just kind of forget about this for a while. And sadly, it all reared its head when like Matt shows up and he's like, yo, Perry, got some, no, I meant Perry, but Rhett, I got some questions for you. Please don't answer that phone. He's like, oh, my brother's been calling me. And it's like, dude, we told the cops that you were staying with a girl the night Trevor disappeared. And he's like, yeah, I was with the girl. And it's like, who? And Maria covered for him by being like, it was me. And you're like, interesting. Because neither one of them at the time knew that Trevor's dead body showed up. So, at the time, Rhett did, because Perry told him over the phone, but Maria didn't know. That's why she covered for him, because it's like, right, Trevor might pop up, and there might be some issues about the fight, and she doesn't want him to get in trouble, like, you know, so... But, sadly, Joy tracked her down later on and confronted her about her lie, and kind of put a lot of pressure on her, like, yeah, you lying now, even though it might seem like the right thing, is going to get people in a lot more trouble, especially when she ends up dropping the bomb. Trevor's dead body showed up. And so now Rhett gets brought in, and so does Perry, and she questions them one at a time, and she's trying to poke holes in their stories. And the thing is, she's putting like, right, what are you not telling me about your brother? She's saying that same line to both brothers, because it's like, right, one of you might have done it, both of you might have done it, I'm trying to poke holes in your stories. And Perry kind of unfortunately puts Rhett in a position where it's like, right, none of us know where he was. But Joy still does ask Rhett. It's like, right, the last person left seen with Trevor was Perry. So are you covering for your brother in some shape or form? Once again, the blood on the buckle wasn't Perry's. It was Rhett. So luckily their dad showed up, I guess, with a lawyer or whatever at the time, and was able to pull them out. And now Rhett's pissed because he's like, right, you're trying to throw this all on me. Because that was what he was scared of from the very beginning. All he did was try to protect his brother in the end. And now, potentially, he in his mind is like, you're trying to throw this on me? He's like, no, of course not. And his dad's like, if you were trying to, like, throw your brother on the bus, she's like, no. Like, what did you want me to do, Dad? Confess. He's like, no, I want you to basically get your shit together and keep it tight-lipped. And, like, God damn it, like, why don't fall apart, especially considering you are actually the one who murdered Trevor. But I think maybe on some level what's going through his mind, and especially when Joy brings up, right, you know, your family's been through a lot, you've been through a lot, losing Rebecca to whatever circumstances, we still don't know where she is, or if she's still alive, or if she ran away, what happened. Now you also got to worry about Amy. I don't want to put her through all this too. So that is the thing of like, right, I can't let anything happen to my daughter just being without like both of her parents. So to some extent, I think that plays a role in it. And, you know, Royal was asking his son, like, what do you want me to do? And his dad's like, Rhett's like, go back in time. And that hits with Royal. And I think that has something to do with why he goes after Autumn's necklace last episode. Because Joy had referenced, like, oh, people saw the mountain disappear. He's like, really? And I guess maybe he put two and two together, like, right, maybe the mountain disappeared because when we were close to each other, maybe that rock has something to do with it because it's glittering the same color as the particles on top of that hole. So maybe he's thinking, right, if I have this, maybe I can have a little bit more control. And instead of just always going forward in time, maybe I can change it and have control of me. I wonder, is that what this is going to be? Is this going to be him going back in time, changing things? But that's also the complicated thing about time travel. You have no idea what the ripple effects are going to be, how things are going to be different potentially. Because he's also coming from a position of, I know what the future of my land looks like. I know that I die at some point in a near enough future for me to have, for Cecilia to have been like, yo, you died 2 years ago. So there's something there. So it has to be soon enough in the nearby future that he ends up supposedly killed, so. Because they end up going to the funeral, because if they didn't go to the funeral, it'd make them look even more suspicious. But Patricia made a bold move, and she opened the casket. The entire family was just kind of staring straight ahead, and then Perry looked away. And for her, that was all she had to do. She leans into Luke and is like, it was Perry who did it because of his reaction. Like, they've all got the reaction of just like, oh my god, that's rough to look at. But Perry, like, diverting his eyes so heavily kind of means, like, he feels the most guilty about it in some shape or form. So that's all she needed to point it, like, right, it was Perry who did it. So, because they were still under the impression, once again, at the very least, Rhett was a part of it. Even Joy doesn't know. She's like, either Royal and his family had absolutely nothing to do with this, because she also knows he potentially stole that belt buckle, or he's the biggest con man. Because he's balancing so much, all of this, because when the body appeared, Perry had that conversation with his mom, like, yeah, Dad says he has no idea how it got there. He legitimately doesn't, but I think he has more and more of an idea. But Cecilia feels like an outsider to this, because like everything that we've ever been through, I've had her back, we've all made it through it. The Rebecca situation, even this, because we were in this together, but now you're choosing to go at this alone. Like, that is the thing of why won't he tell his family about where he dumped the body? This whole, like, right, because I guess if you tell them, they're going to think you crazy, but it's like, well, if I show them the whole, but he's keeping a secret. The only person he's confiding into some of this is this mysterious stranger, Autumn. But even then, it's like, it's not like he wanted to confide in her about it. He just had no choice because she stumbled across a lot of it, so. I even love that conversation at the, afterwards, after the funeral, he has with Joy, who's asking him questions and stuff. And she's like, right, the world, I think it's interesting because, like, I guess because of everything he's dealing with, everything that's going through his mind, Royal is like, really? Do you believe in, like, law and order, that this world is just chaos? And he's like, look, we just put someone into the ground and look at everyone just drinking their problems away and stuff like that, suggesting, like, it's everyone's way to kind of, like, not focus on what is going to be the inevitable end. It was a very, like, dark and pessimistic view on things. It was almost kind of like, does this even matter? Because in the end, like, we think that there's a law and order, there's a reason for everything, but the world is nothing but pure chaos. There's no controlling that. There's no understanding that. We think we understand the world, and it's not the case at all. Especially someone whose entire worldview changed when it's like, oh cool, I time traveled to 2 years into the future and came back. There's a magic time travel hole in my property. But once again, he challenges Autumn to a game. And I love that whole story about, like, show me your feet. I was like, I thought at first, I was like, oh, because you hide your cards in your boot or something like that. It's like, oh no, because it's supposed to be, and a guy back in the day, like, happened to drop a card and used a lantern to light it up to look for it. But underneath the table, what did he see? That the tall, pale man had who's, that he was playing cards with the devil. And the moment he sat back up, the devil was gone. So I was like, ooh, I like that analogy and story. And then she's just like, fine, here's my feet. Now show me your feet. He was like, nah, I'm square. I love that. And so it turned into this high stakes bet of, cool, if I win, if I lose, you get to stay on my land as long as you want to forever with no issues. If I win, though, I want you to tell me everything about that necklace, that stone around your neck. And Autumn was almost like, wait, why? And she got defensive about it, too. And then it turns into a whole thing of like, no, let's raise the stakes. If I win, if you win, you get all 1,200 acres of the Western pasture. And she's almost like, wait, what? And he's like, if I win, I get that rock around your neck. And she was almost kind of like not sure she wanted to take that bet. But she was also so fascinated in that land. I mean, the fact is he was willing to have that bet. Also behind it, once again, Cecilia's like, you still continue to handle things by yourself. So, ultimately, he comes out victorious. Now, what that means in the long run, we don't know. Because he still doesn't understand how that whole works, how all of this works. So, until he does, he probably can't really do anything. I should also note, I thought was interesting when he went to go see that county assessor. I was looking at that actor. I was like, why does that actor look so familiar? I know him from the show Jesse. I want to say his character's name is Bertram, maybe. I've talked about it before. I've seen bits and pieces of the show just because one of my nieces was obsessed with that show, and like every time I was around her, I happened to see that she was watching it all the time. So. And obviously there's like kind of depressing things associated with that show that I'm aware of too, just because the whole, without going too depressing, like the whole Cameron Boyce situation of it all, it's like, that's a very tragic situation. So that's also like, so, but Royal threatening him because, right, the meeting about determining the land rights situation to that western pasture was supposed to be at the end of the month, but because Royal threatened him, he ended up moving it up a week, moving it up to the next week or at the end of the week or something like that. Which even Cecilia calls him out. It's like, oh, you don't like being threatened, but you sure as hell like getting paid off, because they both like called him out for, right, the only reason why this is happening all of a sudden out of nowhere, even though it's been in the Abbott family for like so long, it's because the Tillersons are paying you off. So then you had the whole situation with Wayne at the end of the episode. He spilled his drink, and it seemed like being near the rock, I don't know if it vibrated. It looked like the liquid was vibrating or having some reaction to that rock. And the rock even seemed like it was kind of like the stuff on the inside seemed like it was moving. And that made him go like, you know what? Never mind, screw it. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to find that. And he sees a bright light in the distance. And I'm curious what that was. I don't know if that was Royal, like, going through the dark and trying to find his way there, and he saw a car approaching in the distance and he cut off the light, or whether that was Royal trying to test some of the whole situation or what. But Wayne finds it. It leads to a tussle. Royal thought he knocked him out, but in fact Wayne knocked him out and gets away, because now Royal has the issue of, now Wayne knows. You have even more reason to try and rewind time, because if you don't, Wayne knows about the whole now, and he's not going to stop until he gets this property. No one's going to believe in the crazy stuff he says. He could try and bring people out there, but still. Royal did have, I think he did bring the necklace with him, so he might have still, like I said, been trying out if he could control where the hole ends up, when and where the hole sends you. So it's definitely going to be really, really interesting to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episodes, well, next week. So I'm excited to see what happens next. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.